Now, before we look at how the Subharmonicon works, we need to understand two different synthesizers, the Trautonium and the Rhythmicon. The Trautonium was a synthesizer developed by Dr. Friedrich Trautwein in Germany back in 1930. This instrument was a vacuum tube-based instrument that had a ribbon controller, so you could play continuously between notes as compared to a regular keyboard-based instrument. It didn't do too well, as only around 13 units were sold. It was also extremely expensive for the time. But in 1938, Oskar Sala, who was very intrigued by this synth, took up the development of it and created his own variation called the mixture Trautonium. In 1948, Oskar Sala created a polyphonic version of the Trautonium. The additional notes were generated using a divide-down system to create subharmonics of the original frequency. So you get a mixture of the original tone and the subharmonics, hence the name mixture Trautonium. Okay, so you may ask, what does this have to do with Moog and the Subharmonicon? Well, fast forward to the 1960s, there's this Austrian composer named Max Brand living in New York who was obsessed with the Trautonium, the Oskar Sala version one that is, and he wanted someone to build one for him. He got in touch with Bob Moog, and while Bob was still in the early stages of developing the modular system, was very intrigued by the Trautonium himself and decided to build one for Max. In 1968, Bob finally delivered the first version of the Moogtonium to Max. Now, Bob didn't use Oskar Sala's design, he pursued his own methods of creating the synth. The Moogtonium is the heritage of the Subharmonicon. Well, at least one of it. The other one comes from the Rhythmicon. The Rhythmicon is considered to be the first electronic drum machine. This instrument was built by Leon Theremin at the request of composer Henry Cowell. The principle behind the instrument was to create complex polyrhythmic patterns that were unplayable or rather difficult to perform by humans. Now, it would be a stretch to call this a drum machine as it produced just one tone, and the focus was more on creating polyrhythms. But a pretty novel idea. Each key on the keyboard would produce a specific rhythm. Hold down a key and hear one rhythm, hold down a bunch of keys and hear a complex polyrhythm. The Subharmonicon implements a similar approach to generating polyrhythms, but instead of keys, you get switches and knobs to control the polyrhythms. Oh, and let's not forget Joseph Schillinger and his mathematical system of music composition. His idea of taking a set of pitches and superimposing them on a set of rhythms with different lengths to create constantly evolving yet rotating musical phrases is the foundation on how musical ideas are developed on the Subharmonicon. The Schillinger system was what inspired Lawrence Berk to open a music school named the Schillinger House, which eventually became Berklee College of Music.